by writing out the things I want to give, the things I want to do, and the things I want to cut out during the day. This helps me be intentional with how I spend my time and energy. It helps me to know what I want to focus on when the brain is trying to get me to engage and the brain is trying to get me to do compulsions. I find it really useful to get things out of my head and onto paper. This helps me not ruminate about things throughout the day, and it helps me to stay present with the things that I'm doing. Once a week, I take some time to reflect on my overcoupling values. This also helps me prevent rumination because I know each Monday I will reflect, so there's no need to think about things in between. This is also a time to identify what was useful in following my values and how and why I stray away from them. This practice of being more intentional helped me be more consistent with taking care of my mental health. I learned how to do things that were useful to me consistently instead of following the brain around all day, because that was what I was doing before. I was very inconsistent and all over the place, and I finally recognized that living like that did not take me to a place I liked. So it was helpful to identify some direction on where I did want to go and look at which actions would take me in that direction and practice doing those actions consistently. This practice is not about becoming a robot. It's not about being super productive. It's just about being intentional with how we spend our time and energy. The actions we might practice will also involve actions that help us rest and help us unwind. And this practice also doesn't kill spontaneity. We can purposefully leave room for spontaneity during a day, or we can even have it as a value for that day and purposefully plan nothing. That might be difficult though, at first, and it might be useful to have some direction with your spontaneity as well. That's because when we're really struggling with our mental health, the actions we do spontaneously, they usually involve a lot of compulsions. They might not be the things we really want to spend our time on. That's why I find it helpful to not leave things up to the brain and identify beforehand what I want to spend my time on. When we start this practice of being more intentional, being more consistent, we can gather a lot of info on what makes this practice difficult and how we might self-sabotage. This is a great opportunity to look at making things easier. Making a change is very difficult for a human being, so that's why it's helpful to look at how to make a change easier. What supports can you maybe put in place to make a change easier, and what compulsions can you cut out that might make it easier to do the things you want to be doing? Because compulsions can take up a lot of our time and energy, and we only have a limited amount, so it's very useful to cut out compulsions. A fun challenge can be to look at buffer space. Buffer space is what we might call the space in between actions we set out to do. So an example, maybe I want to go to the gym, and after the gym I want to work on a project. Buffer space is then me scrolling on my phone when I get home from the gym before I go and work on the project. We sometimes think we need to unwind first, but this is a classic coping compulsion where we think we need to feel a certain way before we can do a certain action. If it feels very draining to move from one action to the next, it can be useful to ask ourselves why. Maybe there are some things we're trying to control, some compulsions we're doing that make actions very draining and make it feel like we need to unwind first. This practice is also a perfect opportunity to cut out compulsions, hating on ourselves. Maybe the most important support with this practice is being unreasonably kind to ourselves. And it might be the most important support in life, because it will happen that we don't do the things we set out to do for whatever reason. And that is totally fine. It's not about being perfect. It takes time to learn new skills, and hating on ourselves when we might stray away from the things we set out to do will only take us further away from them and will only take us further away from our values. And we might also start to believe that we just can't do it. Each day and each moment is a new opportunity to practice being intentional with how we spend our time and energy. As I said, it takes time to learn new skills, so I hope you can be kind with yourself as you practice.